Choose the world, you live a life of hell, hate, and grief. Choose Christ, you live a life of love and joy. But we don't always understand that, do we? So, if my desire in my life was to get married, and I go through a tragic event, and I no longer trust God to give my marriage to Him and allow Him to fulfill it, what's your choice? You're going to fulfill it yourself, don't you? Again, what's that one thing in each and every one of your lives right now at this moment that you have not fully given to God? That you are constantly trying on a consistent basis to take into your own hands? For me, it was marriage. So if I'm not going to let God give me marriage, I'm going to take it in my own hands. So where do I go? Okay, well, to get married, you need a girl. So what scene can I go to where there's a lot of girls? That's why I got hooked into the club scene. I started going to clubs when I was in high school. It was a group of us. I started getting to the scene with my best friend. And it was funny because we were exact opposite. He was blonde hair, blue eyes. I was dark hair, brown eyes. You know, and we would always go out on a consistent basis. But we didn't only go to the scene, we actually started becoming the scene. You know how you're not called to just go to church, you're to become the church? Well, I did that on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. I didn't just go to the clubs, I became the clubs. In a very short term, I actually became one of the top nightclub promoters, not only in Rhode Island, not only in New England, but on the entire Northeast. Well, it's not nice to a point, but I want to tell you what that life brings. Not to glorify it, but because you guys have to understand what the world sells. It's very important for you to understand what the world sells. So here I am, I'm 20 years old. 20 years old. I can go into any nightclub from New York all the way up to Maine at will when I want. I can cut any single line. I can go to any single VIP booth. I can get any single bar tab paid for the bubble because of what my position was. That's where it was at that point. Who was I hanging out with? Well, I used to party with some celebrities. You guys hear of Richard Seymour from the New England Patriots? He used to call me on a weekly basis. You guys know Vinny Paz, local world championship boxer? Used to hang out with him on a weekly basis. There would be a boxing fight at the casinos on a regular basis. I would not only be front row, I would be inside the ring sitting next to the ring card girls. That's the kind of life I was living, right? Anything that the world said that you needed, status, power, lust, the looks, I had it. Fashion, I had it all. Everything that the world said that you can have to be happy, that's what I got. Well, who was I hanging out with? Well, the people that I was hanging out with, now listen to this. Really pay attention to this. The people I hung out with on a daily basis were the top drug dealers in all of New England. They were strippers, and there were a lot of people in the porn industry. Those were the people I was hanging out with on a regular basis. Here I was, a child of God, loving God, and then these are the people I start hanging out with. But you know what I said? I go to church every week on Sunday. I don't do the things they do, so it's okay. See how you can get trapped? You see how Satan traps you? Does God do that a lot of times? He says it's okay. As long as you associate people, if you don't do certain things, it's okay. Good. Live whatever you want to live, from Monday to Saturday, as long as you go to church for an hour on Sunday. Life is good. But that's what the lie said to me, and that's what I was thinking. You know, 1 Corinthians 5:6, it says, you boasting about this is terrible. You do not realize that this is sin and is like yeast that spreads through the whole batch of dough. I was opening myself to a yeast of sin, which was about to spread. And this is how it spread. And the reason why I want to tell you how it spread is so you understand, not only for your lives, but people that you talk to. I was never into drugs, even though I was hanging out with drug dealers. But one night, I go to a party, I have 3 glasses of wine, and I noticed that one of my friends spiked my drink with a cap of GHB in every glass of wine that I drank. GHB was a big drug back then. The term is G'd out. When you G out, it means you get unconscious and you don't overdose when you go into a hospital, but you just pass out. That night, obviously, I G'd out. So I wake up the next morning and notice what happens. I was always against drugs, but now not knowing it, I had a drug and G'd out. Well, guess what? That seal's broken, isn't it? So I wake up the next morning, and of course the wife says, well, you already did it. Your body's not pure anymore, so you might as well go along with it. And I did. Started doing GHB. That led to ecstasy. That led to shrooms. You know, thank God I never got addicted to it, but I got into that on a regular basis. What else happens in that scene? Let's talk about sex. You know, I always grew up knowing that I was going to wait until marriage. Well, when you're hanging out with strippers and porn stars, what do you think's going to happen? Don't you think that makes sense? You know, you have a steady girlfriend, and I was like, everyone else is doing it, so what? You're going to marry the girl? Go ahead, go for it, okay. And then what happens? You guys break up. Well, I guess like she wasn't the one. Well, that girl looks kind of cute. I think I'll end up going out with her, so why not, right? And then you look at a girl and you're like, well, I don't think I want to go out with her, but she looks good. So why not just jump on that, right? And then it gets to the point, see, God wants us as men. He wants us to find someone that He chosen for us to live a life of truth and love, to get married, to be united through Christ, and to have sex be a physical bond that unites the union that He created, right? That's the point that God created for us men. But you're no longer having sex to be unified with someone through Christ. You're no longer having sex with the person that you love. You think you love someone, so you're having sex just for the case of it. And what happens is, you no longer have sex with the one that you love. You have sex with someone just to see if you love the person. Isn't that what society teaches us right now? You see, a little boy that loved God, you open up one little crease of yeast and look how it spreads. Only because I wouldn't give marriage to God. I would never give that up to Him because of what happened, so I took it to my own hands, and look what it brought me. You know, in 1 John 3:7 it says, "Dear children, don't let anyone deceive you about this. When people do what is right, it shows that they are righteous, even as Christ is righteous. But when people keep on sinning, it shows that they belong to the devil, who has been sinning since the beginning of time." You see, I thought, again, I go to church every week, so who cares what I do? Was I a true Christian? Was I even acting on it? Let me tell you the most deadly thing about that sin and being in that scene. Not only was I corrupting myself, if I'm a nightclub promoter and there are 1,000 people that come to my club on a weekly basis, no, not even a weekly, on a nightly basis, Thursday through Saturday, think in God's name, how many people did I corrupt? Think about that. I'm the one, you hear radio ads on the radio? Well, guess what? From 2002 all the way to 2006, I created those ads. You see the flyers about pimps and hoes and Playboy parties and body shots and girls going wild? Guess who created that stuff? Do you know how much that sucks to stand up here and admit that to you? Do you know how humbling it is? Do you know how decimating that is to a person, knowing that you influenced thousands of people to sin? That's who I was. And that's what giving a life to sin actually did for me. All those people, you hear about the guy doing body shots on the bar, that was me, man. That was the life I lived. And I convinced all those other people to do that. But for some reason, living that life, I wasn't satisfied. Go figure. Right? I did everything that the world said to do, but it didn't give me satisfaction. Did I get married? No. I had girls, would they ever get married? No. Go figure, right? But you know what that scene did? See, what Satan does is, when he actually traps you, he blinds you, doesn't he? He doesn't realize what you're doing. And then after you've done things so bad, he lifts up those blind shells and he allows you to see all the destruction that you created. And what does that do? It causes resentment. It causes hatred. It causes guilt. And he makes you live in that. And that's where I was during that entire time. So the clubs are so great, right? That's what Hollywood wants you to think. By the way, Hollywood portrays this picture, right? That's so great and fabulous. Can anyone tell me 5 successful Hollywood marriages? Anyone? No one, right? So if we're supposed to live the life of Hollywood because it's so great and glorious and it's the key to happiness, right? How come there's not 5 people in all of Hollywood that are happy in marriage? It's not brain science, right? So let me tell you the effects of the club scene. And this is important for all of you to know. One day, I'm walking back to my car when the club is over. I'm in the middle of a 50-person brawl with people getting their heads sliced open with beer bottles. Another time, when I was working at a club, I mentioned GHB. People would G out on a regular basis. And what would we do? Would we call the cops? Would we call the ambulance? No. We would, think of how disgusting this is. We would pick the bodies up and drag them in the back room in the kitchen and leave them there until they woke up. How disgusting is that? That's what I did on a weekly basis. I remember one time going to the kitchen and I would literally have to walk over body after body after body because there were so many people G'ing out that night. Imagine getting a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, "Yo man, I heard you were looking at my girlfriend, you better watch out because tomorrow you're getting capped." Imagine getting a phone call from a friend, "Yo man, I had a drug dealer, just went bad, someone's chasing me, I need you to come get me." Imagine getting another phone call, "Yo man, something's happened, the cops are chasing me, I need you to pick up my car, here's where it's located." That was my life. Is that something to brag about? Is that something to glorify? Absolutely not. You know, I told you about my best friend who I entered the club scene with. We were best friends since we were 13 years old. We did everything together. We traveled. When I moved to California for a little bit, he actually came with me. He was a single child, so I was like the brother. I was definitely the best man at his wedding. He was definitely going to plan my bachelor party when I got married. One of the toughest things you'll do in this scene is getting a phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning, the Monday after Thanksgiving, from your best friend's mother in tears. You go to the hospital at 5:15 in the morning, and as soon as you open the door in ICU, people are bawling, he's gone. You walk inside that room, and there you see your best friend that you've been best friends with since you were 13 years old, with tubes coming all out of his body, and his mother, who you grew up with, on her knees, bawling her eyes out because she just lost her only son. My brothers in Christ, me and my best friend entered that scene at the same time. I am here giving you a testimony, but on this past Thursday, just 2 days ago, we buried my best friend. He is no longer here. When I give you this testimony, it's not just a nice hunky-dory story. It's truly about life and death. I experienced a girlfriend that passed away, and now my best friend passed away. But what happens when you go through that, right? Well, the club scene didn't give me happiness, so you know what? The world says I can buy happiness. Any guys ever hear that? So let's do it. Let's go for money. And that's what I did. You know, I started into the fashion business. In 5 years, I became the top fashion show producer in all of the Northeast. You know, the average fashion show would have 500 people in the audience. My show's 2,500 people in the audience. We shattered every record that could possibly happen. I was actually getting big into the business world. I was working at the Providence Journal. I was making $100,000 a year working 25 hours a week. I was big into politics. I was actually chair of my city's GOP. Again, everything the world said that you needed, I obtained. I should be happy, right? Didn't happen. See, when you fight for money, guess what? You start treating people like objects of money. And that's what I did. I started treating people like objects of money. You know, I can remember in 2007, I should have gotten married. I was with a girl. This was the girl that I definitely should have married. We were talking about buying a house together. Okay, number one mistake, don't talk about buying a house together with a girl until you're actually married, right? We were just going out, so there's problem number one. Well, I wanted to we found a piece of property that I wanted to get, and she said, you know, everything closing was happening a month before the closing was going on. She goes, listen, she goes, I think it's too early for us to buy this house. We're not engaged yet. We're not married yet. I'm just graduating from college. I want you to save up a little more money. Let's wait a little bit. Let's get the ring on the finger, and then let's do it the right way. Gee, sounds kind of sensible to me, doesn't it? I was so blinded by sin, I looked at her. The girl that I should have married, again, remember that was the key desire in my heart, is marriage. I looked at her straight in the eyes and I said, you don't go along with this sale, we're done.